Hello. My goal is to inform teens and adults about the use of heroin, what it is, how it is used, and the dangers of using it. According to Time.com, the website states heroin use in the United States has reached epidemic levels. Heroin use has increased 63% in the last 11 years, and heroin-related overdose deaths have nearly quadrupled over the same time period. Heroin in the United States has skyrocketed, spreading to include groups who previously were less likely to use the drug. While heroin use continues to be most common among men between the ages of 18 and 25 who make less than $20,000 annually, the CDC researchers note that in recent years, people in nearly every demographic group are using the drug. Heroin use has doubled among women and non-Hispanic people in the United States. My family was affected with heroin use. About a year ago, my son's girlfriend's father overdosed on the drug. He was a previous user and was clean for 6 years. He had a stressful life event, returned to using heroin just one time, using the dose that he was previously using 6 years ago, and he overdosed and passed away. So knowledge about the drug has been very crucial in the grieving process that my family and his family went through. So what is heroin? According to drugabuse.gov, states that heroin is a highly addictive drug synthesized from morphine. It is obtained from the opium from poppy plants. Heroin is a downer or a depressant that affects the brain's pleasure system and interferes with the brain's ability to perceive pain. In the purest form, heroin is usually a fine white powder. More often it is found to be rose gray, brown, or even black. The coloring comes from additives, which have been used to dilute the drug. It can include sugar, caffeine, or other substances. According to drugfreeworld.org, heroin is sometimes cut with strychnine and other poisons. The various additives do not fully dissolve, and when they are injected to the body, can clog blood vessels that lead to the lungs, liver, kidneys, or brain. This itself can lead to infection or destruction of your vital organs. A spike in overdose deaths in early 2014 is believed to be linked to heroin laced with the powerful painkiller fentanyl. How is heroin used? It can be used as an injection, inhaled by snorting or sniffing, or smoked. All three routes of administration deliver the drug to the brain very rapidly. According to drugabuse.gov, these methods pose health risks and increase risks for addiction, which is a chronic relapsing disease caused by changes in the brain and characterized by uncontrollable drug seeking, no matter what the consequence is. Some immediate short-term effects of heroin. Once heroin enters the brain, it is converted to morphine and binds rapidly to opioid receptors. Heroin users report feeling a surge of pleasurable sensation, a rush. According to drugabuse.gov, the intensity of the rush is a function of how much the drug is taken and how rapidly the drug enters the brain and binds to the opioid receptors. With heroin, the rush is usually accompanied by warm flushing of the skin, dry mouth, and a heavy feeling of the extremities, which then may be accompanied by nausea, vomiting, and itching. After the initial effects, the user usually will be drowsy for several hours. Mental functioning is clouded, heart function slows, and breathing is significantly slowed. Slowed breathing can also lead to coma and permanent brain damage. Long-term effects of heroin can be no matter how heroin is ingested. Chronic heroin users experience a variety of medical complications that can become very extensive and severe. According to drugabuse.gov, repeated heroin abuse changes the physical structure and physiology of the brain, creating long-term imbalances in neural and hormonal systems that cannot be easily reversed. Medical consequences include addiction, infectious diseases such as HIV, hepatitis B and C from shared needle use, collapsed veins, bacterial infection of the blood vessels and heart valves, abscesses, and other soft tissue infections. Many of the additives found in street heroin include substances that do not readily resolve and the result of clogging of the blood vessels that lead to the lungs, liver, kidneys, and or brain. That can cause infection or even death in these vital organs. Immune reactions to these other contaminants can cause arthritis. Sharing of injection equipment or fluids can lead to some of the most severe consequences of heroin abuse. Infections of hepatitis B and C and HIV, like I stated, and other blood-borne viruses are known to be the most serious. According to WebMD, if you use heroin often, your body builds a tolerance to it. That does not mean that it will not harm you. It just means you need to take more to receive the same high, and your body starts to depend on it. This is characterized by the need to continue use of the drug to avoid withdrawal symptoms. Some statistics and facts. According to drugabuse.gov, heroin use is no longer solely in urban areas. Several suburban and rural communities report increasing amounts of heroin use as well as increasing numbers of overdose deaths. As mentioned in usnews.com, heroin has skyrocketed in the United States and is hitting young adults the hardest. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says males, non-Hispanic whites, 18 to 25 years old, and people living in large metropolitan areas are at most risk for heroin addiction, which covers most of the United States. Heroin addiction spans all ages, races, genders, incomes, insurance statistics, and locations. Individuals have reported switching to heroin because it is cheaper and easier to obtain than prescription opioids. As cited from U.S. News, the average heroin user changed drastically in the last decade. In 2000, Black Americans aged 45 to 64 had the highest death rate for drug poisoning involving heroin. Now it is white people aged 18 through 44. The heroin epidemic is hitting young adults more than any other age group. The use among Americans aged 18 through 25 increased 109% from 2002 to 2004 and 2011 to 2013. For Americans 26 and older, it's increased 58%. Abuse has increased most drastically in the Midwest. Early drug use has shown increase in a person's chances of developing addiction. If we can prevent young people from experimenting with drugs with the use of education, we can prevent drug addiction. Teens still developing judgment and decision-making skills may limit their ability to accurately assess the risks of all of the forms of drug abuse. When research-based substance use prevention programs are properly implemented in schools and communities, use of illegal drugs is reduced. Such programs help teachers, parents, healthcare professionals shape youth's perceptions about the risk of substance abuse, according to drugabuse.gov. By acting now, we can educate our population, teens and adults alike. We can start reducing the use of heroin in the United States. Thank you.